Hello, welcome to the Inner Adventure series where nature, ecology, adventure, and psychology meet. I am Lutz Otto. I'm a business consultant and wilderness and safari guide. My co-host is Dr. Ken Jennings, a consulting psychologist in private practice. Over a few of these series, we've touched on principles of resilience, what resilience is, and how resilience plays out. And we thought it would make a lot of sense to explore this a little bit deeper. And we thought we'd explore it at two levels. The one would be at preparation level, so pre-adventure. And the second would be whilst on the adventure. So two different points in the same journey, because we see them as the same journey, that we'll unpack them. I think also in our discussion, it makes sense in setting it up that we're specifically talking here about a backpacking safari or a backpacking experience, rather than a safari based in a lodge where we go out and we walk on a daily basis. We're looking at something that's a little bit more challenging and an environment that will test us a little bit more. And it's in that space that resilience really starts coming into play. I think to set the conversation off, I thought I'd share a picture and I would let Ken share a couple of thoughts around that. So just going into share screen mode, I think we'll start off with that picture. I think that's a really good point to start. Hello, Ken. How's it?
Good. Yes, I mean, I'm really looking forward to this conversation today that's on resolve and resilience. And wow, I mean, what a picture. For me, the fundamental message is a journey. A journey where I suppose there are going to be ups, there's going to be downs, there are going to be times where there are disappointments. And, this group of people are on an adventure and a challenge. And I'm thinking also, the before. In other words, what were the processes from a mental perspective that the individuals had gone through in terms of their preparation, in terms of increasing their resilience and their resolve, before they actually encounter the challenge, like you say. But I mean, this picture for me just highlights this whole process that one goes through. If I could just add a little bit more to this process. So, before you embark on a journey, the resilience starts already building up in terms of the way you approach the challenge. And I'm thinking about a concept that I developed with top sportsmen. And it's a concept around what I termed uncomfortable intensity. So let me unpack that a bit more, Lutz, and we can maybe see how you see this concept. So before you actually tackle a challenge, what you can do is you can put yourself through a process before actually getting into the reality of the challenge. So let's say somebody decides to go on a walking adventure. And part of the preparation is to take the body and the mind through an actual experience. So for example, let's say you only walk 1 kilometer a day and you decide now I'm going to go and go into this adventure, this challenge. You can start increasing, let's say, and you set yourself up a bit of a program. You might walk 3 kilometers a day. You might decide to walk midday so that you can start getting used to the heat. And you put your body, and mentally, obviously, because your body is going through an uncomfortable, intense experience. Now, as you do that, part of your preparation is you're building up more resolve. You're building up more call it mental toughness. That's another element to this process. And you start feeling more confident within yourself. So I don't know if you want to add to that, Lutz, or so that's something that I do with top sportsmen. We have a look at a situation, and then we push the intensity up, we push the uncomfortableness up, and we do that so that the body starts adjusting to the more difficult demands. Okay, it's not the real thing yet. You know, you're still going to get to the real thing, but it's like building up this inner confidence and this inner, and also you start feeling quite successful if you put your body through a process and you almost feel that you've let's say taken it to another level.
I quite like, Ken, the point that you make around starting to feel confident prior the journey. One of the things that I try very hard to do with backpacking safaris is give, especially clients that have not done this before, an introduction to what they can expect. So I've put together a presentation that I work through, and that really affords a couple of insights. So to me, preparation is physical, but it also relates to the equipment. And then there's an aspect around how am I going to psychologically deal with this? So the physical preparation is important. If you've got the wrong equipment, it can make that trip really tough. So I try to support them in that. And then the mental aspect is what can I expect on this trip? So it's quite hard to having not done this before, and I know you and I have spoken about this, having not done this before, to actually have that experience picturized in your mind, for lack of a better word. I know that's not an English word, but yeah, to have pictures of what this experience would or would not be. However, if you've gone through the process of getting fitter, preparing yourself roughly mentally for what you roughly think it's going to be, and then have roughly the right equipment, your resilience and your trip is going to be that much better. I think an important point to just explore at this point, Ken, and I'd like your view on this, is the fantasy of the experience. You know, some people create, and I guess at both levels, you've built a fantasy because you've not done this before. So you've built up an idea in your mind. But what happens when that fantasy doesn't align to the reality? Ken, I'm not sure if that makes sense, and if you've got
it makes a lot of sense. I mean, you know, one's got to be careful. This fantasy you talk about, people do build up what they think the challenge is going to be like, and sometimes they build it up, sometimes not accessing the right information, and they don't have the experience. Okay. And there are two things that can happen. One is somebody can underestimate the challenge that's at hand. So they underestimate, let's say, the toughness of what's going to happen. The other thing is, what they can do is they can overestimate their own abilities. So they don't have an awareness of their own skills related to the task. So either one of two things: overestimating their skills or underestimating the challenge. And
I think they call that the Kruger-Dunning Effect, eh?
Yeah, exactly. So what then happens is, and now this is part of the mental, call it preparation,
yes.
Because we all have fantasies about the challenge. You know, we all have heard stories about what's likely to happen, and we get excited or we get worried or we start getting anxious and so on. So there's this big buildup that happens. But I think that fantasy, call it, or that mindset, when you get into the challenge, which we're going to be talking in our next lecture or our next conversation, it's the actual challenge. When we get in there, if there's a discrepancy between this fantasy or this mindset versus the actual reality, you get a range of reactions: disappointment, frustration, depression, a sense of irritability, always moaning. Or you get a sense of, sure, this is more or less what I expected. I'm up for the challenge. I've got the resolve. I know it's going to be tough. You see, because that's another thing with the preparation. The journey, with that photograph you showed, the journey has ups and downs, like I said. There's uncomfortable times. There's suffering, suffering metaphorically. I don't know how long you were walking for at that stage, but you might have, this might be virtually looking at the shadows, maybe just early morning, and so you've just got off, but it's the third day, so the duration of the journey is long. But yeah, to have a mindset to say it's going to be tough and it's okay, because that's the nature of the journey.
I think one of the things that, as I look at this picture, that is also important is these experiences can be tough, but they can also be easy. And yes, when we go into the preparation, it's important to prepare for those tough times, but at the same time, to go in with the vision or the belief that this experience is also going to be fun. And when you go in with a more playful kind of approach or mindset, generally these things are a lot easier. If you come in and you think, whoa, this is going to be really tough and really serious, that playfulness doesn't reveal itself as quickly, and then that journey has every likelihood of being tougher than perhaps it really is. If you have a thought around that, Ken, and then perhaps...
No, I mean, Lutz, I think, what you said there really resonated with me. I mean, the other theme around resolve and resilience is, and I'll share this with some of the younger athletes, is to be optimistic in the struggle.
Yep.
And I think the optimism is linked to your feeling, or what you mentioned about being playful and being relaxed, and to be optimistic with an attitude in the struggle. Now again, that's part of the preparation. Just to pause the conversation, is that obviously we've got our own personalities.
Yes.
And some of us might be a bit more pessimistic in our view, a bit more like irritable in the way we approach things. I think embarking on this challenge should challenge that type of attitude. So, and we'll talk maybe about when you do get into the actual challenge, if you become pessimistic and you become sort of like irritable, it actually intensifies the difficulty and everything. You start almost blaming. You start sort of saying the weather's too hot, and I don't know why there's so many muggies around, and I needed water. Why can't I have water now? And all of that starts playing up because the fundamental attitude that you come into the experience with is not one with a playfulness. It's not one with being optimistic in the struggle. So I think that's also part of the preparation.
I think, every experience that we encounter in nature teaches us so much more about ourselves if we're open to it. And I think our next in the series, which reflects on challenge whilst we're out there, probably will talk a little bit too about what you've just spoken to. You were talking about muggies around your head. Muggies, for those of you who are not familiar with the Afrikaans term, little flies, and these flies can come in numbers, and they can be quite irritable. I've seen muggies have people laughing, and I've seen muggies have people really angry. Yes. And I think that's the difference between being optimistic in the struggle and honoring the struggle versus taking it all a little bit too serious. Ken, I think we're coming to the end of our time.
Yes.
Anything you would like to add or bring a closure?
Yeah, this thing about coming to the end of our time. I mean, Lutz, I can end off with just a very brief story, which I think highlights this preparation. So, you know about the Otto Trail.
Absolutely.
So I knew it was a
iconic trail for those of you that don't know.
Yes, yeah. I mean, wow. Yeah. So I knew that there was 5 stages. I knew that it was, 10 Ks, and it was really mountainous and so on. And then on day 4, there's this whole big challenge which everyone talks about, which is the Blowkrans River and the crossing. And so the first time, in terms of the preparation, I remembered I actually had a rucksack on. I even put some bricks in the rucksack, and my wife and myself, we did walks and we got ourselves all prepared. And then we actually did the walk. And we got to the Blowkrans River and it was raging. And it was like, we had to swim across. Fortunately, we had 6 other, there's 12 on the trip. We had 6 other young guys who actually helped us through. But that experience scared me. So I wanted to do the Otto Trail again, because I know that you never experience the same challenge twice in the same way. So I said to my wife, let's do this again. So we did it again, just the 2 of us. And based on this anticipation of Blowkrans River, I decided to go through a major resilience resolve program of improving my swimming, because I'm not such a good swimmer. And I practiced, I must have been about 3 months building up to the actual swim. We got to the Blowkrans River, and you have to leave at a certain time so that you cross it at low tide. And you won't believe it, Lutz. It was a dry bed. I walked through water, not even an ankle deep. And, it got me thinking about preparation. It got me thinking about these mindsets. Because the other thing I thought about is what happened if my experiences were interchanged. In other words, I had the first experience going across the Blowkrans River, walking in shallow depth of 1 ankle height, as it were, and almost being blasé, and arriving for the second one, and it was a raging river. I think I would have been shocked. So I think this highlights just this idea about the preparation we spoke about and the mindset.
Beautiful story. I sit here smiling because it's exactly how it happens. It's when you expect something, something else plays out.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for joining us in this next of our series. The next time we chat, we're going to talk about resolve and resilience in challenge. If you've enjoyed our chat, hit the like button. If you'd like to put any comments, please do. Please share the chat. All the very best. Look after yourselves. Ciao.